Christian,
Hey, good morning, Robert.
good morning, good morning, good morning. So, anyways, you guys, we're going to go ahead and get started here. So, today is not going to be any more than 45 minutes. And basically, what I'm doing is I am taking you through my listing presentation. All of those things that I sent out to you, I use those in my listing presentation. So, we're going to just do like I do a conversation with my seller. I'm going to do that. One of the things that I always do in my listing presentations is I always come up for air and make sure that the seller understands where we're going.
Yeah.
Anyways, so that being said, let's go ahead and get started. Everybody got the stuff I sent out, right?
This
Yes.
morning, yes.
Okay. Send stuff out the morning of. Guess why? Because if I send it out a week in advance, it gets lost always.
Yeah.
So what we're going to do is my listing presentation, you guys, is wrapped around an actual A to Z closed transaction. Why do I use that for the listing presentation? Because everybody that's involved understands exactly the process when it comes to closing, and they see, even though they're using a buyer's premium to get paid, they see how it translates over into the closing market, and there's never a question about that stuff. So if you go from A to Z and you do my listing presentation up until you have your own story and your own that you can show your sellers, for me, it's been 100%. My agents that are utilizing this tool, it's more of a 90-10, and it's because they're not walking out of there with the signed document. They're going home and then, letting the seller think about it, do something else, and somehow or another that's when we lose 10% of the people. So this is a proactive business. If they don't get it and they don't understand it, the best case scenario, take them traditional. You don't have to use a platform. All the marketing and everything we do is just to get you the listing appointments. But when you see what the platform did for this seller that we're going to be talking about, every one of my sellers want to do it that way. The biggest objection I get is that, well, I don't want just 100 people to come to my open house. I want 1,000 people. So I want you to go down from your 370 down to your, 299. Let's get well, science, features, and benefits matters in this business. The perfect science for you, Mr. Seller, is me to get 100 people walk through this house and look at it. If I do that, the science behind that says we're going to get 10 of those people to make offers on the site. And if I get 10 of them, it always comes down, just as you're going to see in this listing presentation, it comes down to 2 or 3 that want it. In this case here, the home went up, I think, 30% over market value. And that's why I use, and again, I think I told you guys last week, this isn't my best event that I've ever done. It only went up like $100,000. I've had Joe Petno, one of our guys that use for him, he had one go up $308,000. The best I've done is 290.
My wife's client bid on that property. There was a triplex.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. That's how I found you. My wife her investor bid on it, and she said, Christian, you got to look into this platform. And here I am.
There you go. So while this isn't the best one that we've done, it's one that they've allowed me to use the purchase sale agreement with names, brokerages with names, actual closing HUDs with names and money. I didn't have to black out anything. So you guys are able to show your seller everything from A to Z, how the process works. And once they understand what the process did for this, Alan and Joy Hazard that we're going to talk about today, once they understand that, they'd be foolish not to list with you. When you'll see as I talk, very passionate. Sometimes I get loud and I gotta why am I yelling at the computer? Why am I yelling at the consumer, the seller, this and that? But when you get a perfect offer event and you've run it and you see what it did for the sellers, what it did for the buyer, what it did for the buyer's agents, everybody, because of the transparency, having control with no hidden agendas where they want to end up. And that's what separates us from the NAR lawsuit, you guys. Completely transparent. We have no hidden agenda. and everything is disclosed. It's up for everybody to see in public. What could be a better process? So that being said, we're going to go ahead and I'm going to get into it. If you guys wouldn't mind, hold on to your questions till after the process. Like say that I'm going to act like I'm talking to a seller, and I'm going to show what I show, all these things I sent you guys as well, and we'll get into it. So if you want to look at this property, just go to active properties and scroll down to sold properties. And bingo, bango, bongo, here's the home that we are doing the listing presentation for. First thing that I do when I go into and I'm not going to bore you with all the minutia behind it. I just want to jump right into the actual listing presentation. But one of the things that I do when I do a listing presentation is I am doing the walk around. My wife generally does walk around because she is much better at the walk around than I am. But what I try to do is establish some common ground. So in this listing presentation, happened to find out that he was part of a church that my best friend and I have grown up since like 6 months old with each other. We've been best friends for 66 years, and he is one of Dave Ramsey's financial counselors. And if you guys know anything about Dave Ramsey, it's, you know, get out of debt, pay cash for a car, don't finance a car. And he was sitting inside of a Starbucks. I used to go to a Starbucks in Seattle every morning. I'd take this goofy sign over with me. So this sign is probably 24 by 36. And I used to stick it on a chair next to me. If I went to a sandwich shop I'd always bring the sign in and I'd sit it on a chair, and lo and behold, always somebody would come up and talk to me. So Alan was sitting at Starbucks, and here I am sitting there reading, and he's talking to a Keller Williams uh, agent. This was his ninth agent that he's talked to. When he was talking to him, the other nine agents, I sat and overheard the conversation. Well, out of the nine agents, I'm going to make a long story short. Out of the nine agents, everybody gave Alan prices for his home, doing it traditional, charging him a 5 or 6% commission. Their prices were anywhere from 350 to 400. The only agent that said it was worth 400 was the last agent that he talked to at that Starbucks that I was sitting at. And he was, until he saw my sign, he was actually going to list a home with that Keller Williams agent. So he gets up, the Keller Williams agent leaves and goes away. And he comes back in and sits down. He goes, hey, he goes, is that sign real? He goes, I don't get it. How come you can do this? And that was my ninth realtor I've talked to. Why can't they? And I said, well, good. That's kind of a great question there, Alan. And so talked about, well, hey, what do you do? And he told me about Dave Ramsey and this and that. And he goes, well, I basically said, yep, the sign's true. I've done over 50, at that time, only 50 transactions through the site. And I've saved sellers up to this point. I think at that time it was like, I don't know, $600,000-700,000 in commissions. But I'll tell you what, if you want to know more about it, what I need to do is I need to come out to your house. I'd like to do a quick walk around. I only need 30 minutes of your time, and let me show you what this process does. And he kind of looked at me and he goes, well, I think it's a gimmick, and I'm not really sure if I want to talk to you. But are you telling me? So this guy that I just got done with, he says my home's worth 400,000, and again, the other eight said 350 to 375, but this guy came in at 400, and he was telling me I had to pay 6% commission. So he was telling me after that I was going to net somewhere around 350, and you're telling me that I don't have to pay that $24,000 commission. I said, Alan, I'm not only going to tell you that, but I've done it 50 other times. He goes, well, if I can save $24,000, it's worth it for me to go and listen to you. So we went ahead and set up an appointment, and I found out that Alan was relocating from Washington to Florida. He wanted to get out of the politics of Washington. And so they wanted to get going to Florida as soon as possible. They needed to sell the house so that they could go to Florida and buy something. They're anxious to do it. They're anxious to go. So So the first thing that we did when I came in is we went through some net sheets, and I sent you guys over the net sheets because remember he already agreed with that Keller Williams $400,000. So when I do a listing presentation, I'm taking three net sheets for traditional, and I'm taking three net sheets for the easy real estate method down here. So the very first net sheet that I sent you here, this is based on a $400,000 listing price, and this is running it traditional. Okay. What does traditional means? That means he's going to pay listing and buyer firm commissions. So $400,000, by the time we were done, he was going to net $364,000. All right. So we've already established that. And I'm not going to get into the easy net sheets yet because I don't need to, because we're not to that point. But for this story here, it's the very first one that you guys open up. So, all right, Alan. So we've established you were going to list a home at $400,000. And I just got a question for you. If I were to come in, because I can list it traditionally too, if I were to come in and list it at $400,000, and by the way, you had told me that was $25,000 higher than the 8 other real estate agents. Is that correct? He goes, yeah, that was correct. Okay, so $400,000. How many buyers you think would come and look at your house on the very first weekend? And he goes, I don't think many would. I think the realtor was telling me that the average days on market's like 110 days. And he's telling me he's going to do open houses every weekend. And, but he said, we're probably, into this thing anywhere from 60 to 120 days before it sells. And so I said, well, yeah, how did you feel about that? He goes, I'm a little annoyed. I don't want open houses every weekend. I don't want buyers displacing me every 5 minutes. I don't want, so I'm finding about all these objections that he had with if he were to list as traditional, and he was under the mindset 30 to 120 days it was going to be on market because that's what the MLS showed. So I said, okay, so again, $25,000. Is it safe to say probably nobody's going to show up the first weekend? He goes, that's fair enough. I said, so let's start talking about the easy real estate platform. If I were to do it traditional, I'm going to match Keller Williams. I can do it for $400,000 too. You saw the net sheet of 364. Now let's start talking about the easy real estate platform. So my objective, because you're not paying the commission, is you get the opportunity, Alan, to list the price lower to drive buyers into the home. My objective here is I want to attract 100 buyers into your home. And he goes, okay. And I said, so let's just start out gradually here. So we're at $400,000. What do I need to list it to get 25 buyers in there? And he goes, probably, $10,000 less. So long story short, we agreed on $370,000. That would give me probably 100 to 150 buyers into the home. And there, so we basically started the process at $370,000. So now we've got the home, we've got an agreed thing, we've got it listed for 370. Now let's see what it did for Alan himself. Done it. Remember, you guys, he didn't think he was going to get $400,000. And when I talk to a buyer's agent or a buyer at the open house, so we're doing a 6-hour open house on Saturday, and I'm only doing one. I'm not doing them every week until it sells because I know if I price it and I get 100 people in there, I'm going to be in contract Monday or Tuesday. Okay. This home happened to be a part of when we talk about bucket pools of buyers. This home was available to 100% of the buyers in the Seattle metro area, especially at the price that it was. The average price in Seattle, $600,000. We were going to start this one at 400. So obviously we know that we're going to get a better turnout than the $600. So if this home were in a 55 and older neighborhood, my buyer bucket pool went down to probably 10% of 100. Because remember, 55 and older, how many buyers are there compared to this home? So always keep that in the back of your mind. Market conditions always prevail. Do I have 100% of that buyer's bucket pool available to me? So in this case, we did. So we started the bidding. We had $370,000. When I talked to the agents and I talked to the buyers, I am telling them, obviously, this is 10 to 15% below market value. Would you agree with that, Mr. Agent or Mr. Seller or Mr. Buyer? Yes. Well, the seller took, because you're paying the buyer's premium, the seller took that into account and lowered the price down to that amount. So if you were to get this home at 370 with the 6% buyer's premium, we're bringing you up closer to the retail mark. So that's an objection we used to get. Since the anti-air lawsuit, we don't get that objection anymore. It's really cool. So we come in, and so I'm in my open house. We got 113 people that showed up at that open house. So I do my open houses, I do 6 hours. It's extreme, but why do I do it? The first 2 hours are only for looky-loo neighbors. And I don't count them as a part of that 113 people. But I invite looky-loo neighbors to come by, preview the house, and I have some food and beverage out there for them. And I've got a sign-in tent, and I've got all the stuff that you guys should have seen by now in the training down there. Everybody has to sign in. Everybody's got it. I know exactly who they are. I give them a how-to sheet, which we'll go through later, yada, yada, yada. But why do I do the neighborhood first? I always walk out with 1 to 5 listing appointments. Because when they find I got signs all over the place saying I'm selling this house and for 0% commission. And they either know somebody or they're contemplating selling the home themselves. So the first 2 hours devoted to them. So we get that out of the way, and all of a sudden now the next 4 hours are devoted to the public. When I have the home, for the open, and we get into open house later, but I want you to just keep this in the back of your mind. I have an entrance and I have an exit at every open house I do. Okay. Entrance, we're signing them up, signing them in, and giving them how to make an offer on the property. The exit, I've got anywhere from a lender or 2 of our strategic partner lenders that'll come out and pre-qualify people on the site. My objective is to get an offer on that property before the open house ends. So now we're getting into the open house. We got 113 people coming through. Alan's phone's already blowing up from his neighbors. Like, oh my God, I have never seen traction like this before in my life. It's like people are parking all over this guy had an acre lot, and there was parking. You can see in the picture, there was parking up in front of that acre, and that was full already. And so people were coming in droves. So long story short, I've got my lenders over there pre-qualifying people. Lo and behold, Starlene Ward. She's an agent for Remax. And she comes up to me and says, Rod, this is really a fascinating process. I'm really intrigued about how this thing works. And at this time, you guys, it was in 2020, 21. So in Seattle, it was always highest and best, multiple offers. And, we weren't disclosing what those amounts were. So the buyers had to, the same thing with the agent. Agent had to try to guess what to offer on the highest best scenario. So she found out, because we make this 100% transparent, she loved the idea of that, especially in the time. So when I was talking to her, I said, hey, her buyers were over getting pre-qualified. Remax buyers are over getting pre-qualified with my lenders. Imagine that. So that they could make an offer on the property before they left. So we were talking, I always tell people, you want a strategy? You want a good strategy, how to get this thing? The seller has the right to accept, refuse, or negotiate any offer that comes in. Don't walk in at 370. Walk in with whatever your buyers are comfortable and what you feel comfortable with, and try to get the seller can get that. The seller has his number. He's watching this site 24/7. Seller can get his number, and when he gets that number, he can call me and tell me, take that offer, pull it, we're done. And she goes, well, oh, that is great. So Her buyers end up getting pre-qualified. She went outside, talked to her buyers. Half hour later, they come back to the open house. She goes, "Hey, we want to go ahead and make an offer right now. Can we do that here with you instead of me having to go back to my office and this and that?" It's like, sure. So all I need you to do is I need you to sign the buyer's addendum and the easy addendum. And I also need you to give me proof of funds. We happen to have that there, or a pre-qual letter, because our lenders are the ones that actually approved her. And so here we go. We get them registered on the site and they go to make their first bid. What do you think they made it at? $410,000. What do you think happened when my seller saw the 410? And you guys, I can't see you because I'm looking at the screen with you, but $410,000, what is that missing? Don't forget, on top of that, we had a 6% buyer's premium that we had to tack on to that, right? So, and we're going to get to that in just a second. So the first offer comes in. What do you think Alan and Joy did? He's at a softball tournament. His wife is sitting there watching the site on her phone. I get a phone call from Alan in the middle of his softball tournament. "Robert, take that offer. We're done. We're moving to Florida. You've already saved me, like, because they're paying the commission on top. It's already $50,000 over what I thought it was going to make. Take that offer and go." And it's like, "Alan, you trust me, right? I'm here at the open house. I've got 11 other people getting pre-qualified. I think we had 13 people get qualified on the site. As you trust me, right? This is Saturday, so let me just go for." There was a holiday on Monday, so let me just go because this event ended on a Tuesday, I believe. Just let it roll out and let it go. And he's telling me, "Robert, if I lose Starlene, I'm going to come hunt you down and I'm going to hang you to dry." And so anyway, but he finally said, "All right, I'll let the thing go." Well, here we are 2 days later. Now, I think it closed on the 5th, but next, all of a sudden, Sharish comes in. She makes another offer, 411. What does Alan do? Calls me up and says, "Take that offer." Well, while we were on the phone together, 412 rolled in. He goes, "Oh, well, don't take 411, now take 412. And it's like, dude, relax. We're going to let this thing go all the way through until the end, and let's see what this site does for you. So, and here we go. 4-4 is done. Now we got the closing day. 4-5. And here we go. Another bid. Here's Starlene. Starlene was going to get this house, you guys. And it is crazy. 414.5. And here's the cool thing. That very first bid, because I only ended up with like 7 people making offers on this. The reason why, when Charlene made that first $410,000 offer, she ran out 7 of our people that got pre-qualified. They couldn't go that high by the time you had the buyer's premium on. Does that make sense? So when you're talking to your buyers, when you're talking to your agents, you get them excited about making an offer. Don't tell them to come in at the low. Come in wherever you feel comfortable. And in her case, kudos to her, because there would have been more people making offers. She ran out 7 of them. So that was a really smart thing. So now we'll go back up here. Now we're at, so Charlene's good. You know what? I'm going to utilize Robert's advice again. I'm going to run this 415.5 up, and I'm going to run 422 because I want to run these other people out of here right now. And lo and behold, she ran a couple more of them out. So next bid that comes in, this Erin Holdus. The reason why she's relevant in the listing presentation is this was the only cash buyer in the 13 people that had gotten pre-qualified or sent in a proof of funds. Okay, now she comes in at 424.5. It's cash, 15-day closing, no inspection, no blah blah blah. Nice clean offer, and then yada yada. She really wanted the house. She loved actually her buyers loved, she loved the inside the kitchen, and the husband wanted the outside area because he's like one of these toy enthusiasts. He had dune buggies and motorbikes and cars and all the stuff that that was enough property for him to put all this stuff out there. He even thought he was going to build this big huge garage. So Erin Holdes, we want to make sure she's a part of the conversation, and you'll find out why a little bit later. So she makes an offer. Next offer, here we go. Shara Frazier comes in here. Look at Starlene. Baloney on this. I'm getting this home, and I'm still in the fight. Then here's Erin Holdes again. Now, Erin made a fatal mistake. She told her buyers that she was going to try to sneak an offer in. It was due to end at 5. I'm going to sneak an offer in at 4:59 and 50 seconds. And you guys are going to get this home. And it's going to be yours. Well, so she goes ahead and she makes that offer in the last 10 seconds of the site. Well, you see there's more offers that came in, right? What do you suppose happened? Every time an offer is made, we extend it for 2 more minutes. And believe it or not, you guys, when you run these offer events right, the people that run right, we're averaging 22 minutes over the closing time. So this one happened to go for about 25 to 30 minutes. So Erin calls me up and said, Robert, your site's broke. Yeah, it's going. I told my buyers we were going to get this house because I didn't know it extended time. And it's like, Erin, it's in that document you have, and you and I went over this. She goes, I know, but I forgot. What do I do? And I said, well, what do you do? Everybody else, get back in the game. And she only had enough funds to cover that. She could not go back to her buyers and get another set of proof of funds, even though she could have because we went on for another half hour. But she had to go back to her buyers and eat crow. So then we go. Now we are, every bid from here on it is going fast and furious. Once 5 o'clock hit, now they know, it's going to go on forever. And all of a sudden now you can start to see these huge dumps. Here's Starlene again. Look at the next jump, 435. Then you got 438, 439, 500, 441, 442. Look at that. Starlene's still in there, 444. Yeah, and again, she jumped up higher than the minimum. We got 44.7. Starlene again. So it always comes down by making this transparent and letting the buyers decide what the market value is why everybody loves this. So remember, market value was $400,000, and that was $25,000 higher from the next highest agent out of those 9 that he interviewed. And here we are at 447. And the final one, 451.5. That's fine. My seller was ecstatic. These guys, what do you think happens when people come to write an offer when they see 100 people that they're bidding against or offering against, and they know there's a cash offer in there somewhere that's going to waive inspection, waive appraisal, waive every contingency that you can think of gets waived. Starlene came up and told me before she left the open house, if we happen to get this, my buyers are waiving everything. I see that they just want this home. It's going to be the cleanest offer you've ever seen. So the end of it came down. Obviously, my sellers chose the 451.5. Pretty cool, huh? Now this offer event is done. Okay. Then we go back into the actual executed offer. So the bid event's done. It's out of the thing. It was 451.5. We have a 6% buyer's premium that we have to add on to that 451.5. So the purchase sale agreement ends up being 478.590. So as you're telling the story, you are showing this owner exactly how this works. This is a closed transaction, you guys. And I go through and I'll go down here and I'll show them every page if they want to see it. Most of them don't want to see it, but and then I scroll down through it and and then what I do is I stop at the easy addendum. You notice here there's I don't ever handwrite stuff into this, you guys, and I am so embarrassed that I did. But before anybody can make an offer on the property, they have to provide proof of funds or a pre-qual letter. Before they can make a bid, before we allow them to make a bid, we are actually calling that bank and making sure that they are a good client up here. So I had this thing done here, and you can see all the parties signed it. And it even explains our new addendums 1,000 times better. This even explains uh, how it gets paid. So that's done. And then I show them a closing statement. We went through this last week on the closing statement. Why am I showing that? By the addendum, by the wording in the addendum. And you see here the 6% buyer's premium. I pay my 1% to my company too, you guys. We're not making a lot of money on that 1%. Because remember, we got a minimum of 1,500 and we cap it at 5,000. We'll talk about strategies for those of you who can get into $800-900 million homes. You actually end up making a lot more commission with this by us having our cap. So all of the stuff I show to the seller, and I get done with my presentation, and what do you think Alan says? Well, I don't want just 100 people coming in, Robert. How about if we go to 299 and I get 1,000 people in there? And so obviously, you guys, we 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 want 100 people because that's where the science behind the site, that's where it works. I'm going to just scroll down to you and show you what this did for so the buyer at $400,000 would have had to move to Florida and rent a place. And to try to find, they had to go there through the closing process and buy a place, but it had to be a contingency offer. And in Florida was at that time was hotter than heck too. So they were going to, try to rent a place. They didn't really want to do that because it was taking their money away from what they were going to do. But we come down to this in the traditional sense, he would have netted 361. With us, he netted 438 out of it. So what did that extra money allow him to do? $77,000 over traditional price. He was able, first of all, to take a vacation. Second of all, they bought a car. The other thing they do with this Dave Ramsey, don't pay movers to move yourselves. You guys go get a U-Haul and you move it and you save the money. They were able to pay movers out of the proceeds. And the best part of this for the hazards, they were able to go and rent a place for 6 months and they traveled all over Florida in that 6 months, stayed in hotels and looked at the area. They finally ended up buying a place in Cocoa Beach. So all that being said, you guys, that is my listing presentation. The last thing that I had sent you was the actual listing presentation. So your homework for this week, if you saw the sheet, we're going to start working on marketing efforts from here forward. But in the meantime, I want you to go on to Canva. I want you to look at that listing presentation I have in there, and I want you to start editing it and put it into your version. Okay? No, I sent you out the pages 24 through 36 that just explains everything that I just went over in detail. So read that stuff, look at the stuff I sent you out, and look at what it did for this seller. It's amazing to get phone call every time a bid comes in. My head's exploding. I can't believe we did this. And keep in mind too, this isn't the best one we did. Christian was a part of one that went up $308,000. I mean, what do you think that seller said? I was surprised the seller didn't blow their head. So, anyways, but that's the first lesson. That listing presentation. I am 100%. I have never lost a listing presentation utilizing this strategy. Through this training process, you guys should get a couple listings. With the marketing we're going to do during this training process, you should have had your first listing presentation with it. And if you don't get it, the beauty of it is we're going to come together and we're going to figure out why you didn't get it, what happened. If you tell the story with passion and understand what it did for the seller. Christian, how do you think that seller felt making on Joe's listing, making $308,000 more?
Oh yeah, they were super ecstatic. Yeah, because I met with Joe afterwards on that, and yeah, I mean, I think they were shocked, for sure. And that was also after it had been flooded. We had Hurricane Ian down here 2 years ago this past September, so that had gotten 2 feet of water. They rehabbed it, and then they were retired. They're like, we're done. They were 70s, and they're like, we're not doing this again, and fixed it up nice, and then sold it. I wanted, yeah, and that was a excellent, that property was marketed perfectly and the perfect property for this platform. One of the challenges we're having in Southwest Florida is in our area is repetitive hurricanes, right? We had Ian 2 years ago, we had Helene, and then Hurricane Milton hitting us. So our buyer pool, people are backing away, which I'm sure is going to happen in California with the wildfires, natural disaster. Our flood insurance premiums have gone up through the roof. If you didn't have flood insurance or you weren't grandfathered in, it's tripled. So one of the challenges we're having, like I have a property now on the platform, and we priced it about 13.5% below market. Comps show that it should sell for 449. We have it
Well,
at
so
389.
let's talk about that
Yeah.
because that's a big, huge thing for Joe as well. Joe's, like I told you, he's as close as many transactions he's run through there. He's catching up with me at a pretty rapid pace. So Joe's utilizing that service from Don Colucci, Integrity Title,
Hmm.
and they are doing an estimate of where this property is going to be priced in 6 months, and they're
Yep.
using that as a part of the pricing strategy to get it down into reality. Because we
Yeah,
got
he
to have
showed that
100,
to me.
we got 100% of, we got to get 100% of the buyers available. For you guys that are in these market conditions, we're gonna have to help you figure it out, the price, and that's why we're doing this training, Christian.
And that's one of the things that I too am trying to figure out, like you said, like 100 people. I mean, we're not 100 people. You're like, people are having open houses here and getting 0 people. We had several people come through that open house that we did. It wasn't a great day. It was raining in here in South Florida. It was cold, being 60 degrees, not in the 70s and sunny. But the challenge we're having is we're telling, the owners, one and done. But we're kind of tempering now, saying it's going to be two, it could be
Well,
three because of our
market
market, and they
conditions
understand the
always
market
prevail.
conditions.
Market conditions always prevail.
Yep.
And here's the cool thing you just said, most realtors aren't getting anybody their open house. The beauty of what you did, you got buyers to show up and
Yes.
it sounds like a crappy day.
Yes.
So just the last one that we did on Columbus Day, I wasn't real thrilled with the results. But here's the deal. I had 103 people come to the open house. And so my seller, when we got off on, and I told him, I said, hey, I think we could have done better this. And he goes, listen, Robert, he goes, my neighbors were calling me and telling me. And in your case, hey, I got buyers to this where agents aren't. Basically, what he told me is the market has spoken. I am tickled to take this price and go. So we'll talk about those strategies as we go down
Awesome.
further. I had told you guys today was 45 minutes and we're at 11:52. Um, any other questions or confusion? It seems easy, you guys, right? The listing presentation, it's
It's just telling a story.
exactly. What did it do for a buyer? And I always tie I don't care if it's a for sale by owner. I don't care if it's an expired listing. I'm going to say to Frank and I'm sorry, to whoever my seller is, I'm going to tie them in with Alan and Joy. Oh, yeah, Alan and Joy, they came in off an expired listing. Oh, yeah, they had their home up for sale by owner. Or, in my case, the reality was what we met in a coffee shop. But you want to tie them in to whatever the sellers, wherever they came from in your marketing efforts, you want to tie them into that. Oh, yeah, Alan, he was one of those skeptics. He called me up because he wanted to save his commission. He didn't believe it was true because everybody thinks it's a gimmick. The reality is it isn't. It's like, like say, I got $560,000, 550 million, $55 million of closed transactions. So, Daniel, I gotta look in the chat.
I got a question for you on these. Just on the one we just went through, with them selling so much above kind of even where it appeared the market was. Are part of your terms, once a purchase agreement is put together, is that the appraisal contingency is waived?
Yep. Yeah, and again, Frank, if let's pretend only one buyer came through, and that's the one that we got the offer from. It turns in. Remember, after the offer event's done, it turns into a normal residential purchase sale agreement. So if I only got one people making offers on it, then I'm going to negotiate any contingencies out. If I have 100 people there and all of a sudden this buyer says I can't cover the appraisal gap. And by the way, when I know I have a hot property, I'm talking to the agents or the buyers themselves before they make a bid. I know where they stand financially. So I knew that these kids could cover the appraisal gap. Out of 500 homes, we'll say we've done on the site, we've never had an appraisal gap happen. So if you have 100 people and somehow or another that first person that you chose, the seller chose, something happens, they can't afford it. I had two other backup offers on the plate. One of them being the cash. She went ahead and was a backup offer, and the other one being somebody else. So you want to get backup offers as well, but it's still a normal real estate transaction. The only thing that the offer site does is make it 100% transparent. And again, this home went up 30% above market value, perceived market value. Nobody would have thought that thing would go for 451 and have to add, the commission on top of it, including myself. We were shocked, but all of a sudden that started happening with a lot of properties. And
Robert, I have one quick question. What do you say to sellers? Like, I have some new builds, right? These builders are desperate in our area. Their construction loans are coming due, and they got to move it, right? So I have builders saying to me, "Hey, Christian, this house is worth $500,000. All right, you're telling me you want to market it, 409, right? What happens if we don't move it, right? We have a lot less buyers for new builds. How do I pivot back to where I want to put it at 499 the traditional way?"
That's easy to do. It's the opposite of going from a traditional down to like I told you about the kids that we have listed in Seattle.
So it's harder to go traditional to easy versus
you can't
going
do that
easy to
because it looks like a
traditional.
bait and switch because you're lowering the price down. Now they got to pay the commission. But going the opposite way, it happens. But you're still better off with the transparency. I'll say because at 409, if that home's worth 500 at 409, Christian, you ought to be getting some buy, especially a brand new home.
Yeah.
Because we've used this with builders. Mona and I have done really well with builders. Builders love this thing just because of the transparency. So they take a home at a time, just do one home at a time, one home at a time. So, anyways,
thanks.
You guys, thank you. You got my phone number. Please feel free to call me with any questions, but I'm going to go ahead and let you go. I got to go drive my wife because it's too much snow on the ground. So,
Hey, Robert.
Stay warm.
Hey, Robert, are we going to,
yeah.
I know this is the beginning, but we're going to eventually get to the mail merge, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Look at the syllabus I sent you, buddy.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, we'll get there. All right, everybody.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thanks.